Hello, welcome to the Zoom video presentation to introduce you to the new home sharing program here in Clallam County called Olympic Homeshare. I am Nancy Stephanz. I am a retired physician, and my husband just got elected as hospital commissioner, so you're probably aware of the last name because of his campaign run. But he also is the medical director for our volunteer medical clinic here in Port Angeles, and he conducts a homeless clinic every Wednesday night at Serenity House. During the pandemic, you'll remember that moratorium evictions were in place, and so people didn't lose housing if they already had housing. But after those moratorium evictions expired, there was a big uptick in the number of homeless people because they were evicted from their apartments. And the most alarming thing to my husband and myself was the ages of those newly homeless people. Most of them were senior citizens. When he first started volunteering there, hardly anyone was over the age of 40, but that was 10 years ago. Now, hardly anyone is under the age of 50. And so when I retired from active practice of medicine in December of 2022, I became a volunteer with SHIBA, which is the Statewide Health Insurance Beneficiaries Advisors Group. And we help counsel people about Medicare and screen them for eligibility for Medicaid. And I also became very aware through that program of the low income that so many people are trying to survive on in this county. I became very interested in trying to find out all I could about why it's so difficult to provide affordable housing here. Even with all the efforts underway to simplify permitting and speed up the process to actually get buildings built, it's going to take a long time to build affordable housing here. And so I started thinking about what else we could do. And I remember during the pandemic hearing about home sharing on the PBS NewsHour. So I started investigating that more, and I looked into several companies, but the one that I was most impressed with, who has the most comprehensive support program, is called Nesterly. And so I'm going to go through in this first few slides what I like about Nesterly, then give you a couple of slides of data about numbers and host benefit, and then we're going to go through what you need to be aware of if you want to be a home sharing host in terms of the legal landscape in Washington State. And then we're going to talk about how this could benefit our county in other ways. So let's get started. So again, back in February of 2025, I found this article on Vox.net, Why Americans Are Moving In with Strangers Twice Their Age. And it said there are 44 million empty bedrooms in the US. Well, this makes sense when you think about it, because those homes were built for the standard two-parent, 2.4 children family. Once those children grow up and move away, those bedrooms are empty. So that's why there are so many empty bedrooms in this country of ours, which is so rich, and yet there are so many homeless people. And the fastest growing group of homeless people in the United States today is women over the age of 60. So it's not just here on the Washington Peninsula that is true, it's across the country. So why should that be the case? Well, these women were never encouraged to work outside the home during the 60s, 70s, and 80s. If they did, it was often for cash-only jobs like being a waitress or cleaning houses. And so that income was never reported to Social Security, and Social Security is based on your reported income. Plus, if they never married or if they didn't stay married more than 10 years to someone who did get Social Security benefits, they would not have survivor benefits. And you have to have worked 40 quarters, they call it, which is a total of 10 years, to have any Social Security benefits on your own. So in researching companies, I tried to find one that would do all the things that we need to make us feel safe to engage in the process. And Nesterly fits all those boxes for me, for both the home sharing host and the potential renters, or guests, as they call them in their program. They require 2 letters of reference, and they call those people. So you can't just make up something. They will call those references and make sure you are the wonderful citizen you say you are. And they do 4-level background checks on everybody, the home sharing hosts as well as the potential renters or guests. They do criminal background check, sex offender background check, frequent address changes, and they verify social security numbers. Then when you are ready to sign a contract for a home sharing lease with someone, they provide the contracts and they help you construct them. They help you come up with your house rules and specify what you really want in those contracts. And that's probably the most important thing to have in your own mind when you decide to home share. What are your house rules going to be? One book I read from a lady who had house shared for about 20 years of her life, starting at age 20. And one of her house rules, by the way, was no TV. And she was still able to find 3 to 4 people to share a house with so she could make her mortgage payments. So that you have to have your must-have and your can't live with list very clear in your mind. And you have to discuss that with your potential renters and make sure they're okay with those particular rules before you sign a contract. Once a match is made and a contract is signed, a one-time fee that varies between $95 and $195 is charged to both the host and the guest. If the lease length is 3 months or less, it's just $95 to each of them. If it's a year, it's $195. So in between there is going to be somewhere in between on the cost. But that's the only upfront cost that the host and the guest have using the Nesterly program. Then once they are collecting monthly rent using a financial system that Nesterly does require you to use called Stripe, Nesterly keeps 2.5% of the monthly rent, and of course they have to pay Stripe something, so it probably comes out of that. But the good thing is that the home sharing host never has to ask the renter for money, and I think that's a fantastic perk. Stripe collects the rent from the renter's account 3 days before the end of the month. They send Nesterly their 2.5%, and they put the rest in the home host account on the first day of the next month. Also, Nesterly has real human beings who will call all of their clients every month and ask if everything's going okay. Are there any issues that they want some help with? In between those calls, you are free to reach out to them at any time to get a dispute mediated. They will do income verification if requested by the homeowner and also confirm that someone who says they are a student actually is an enrolled student. The other nice thing about Nesterly is that they encourage renters to do what they call task exchange so that they have less financial burden. The idea is that for every hour of work that they provide on the property for the homeowner, the host, their financial burden of rent will be decreased by basically minimum wage. So this is something else that you would negotiate with your renter. But say someone lives on 5 acres, they no longer want to have to mow, they don't want to have to pay a landscaping company to come and do that every week or two. They could negotiate that as a job for their renter instead, lowering the rent for the renter and saving themselves some money because they wouldn't have to hire that landscaping company anymore. And the same thing could be done with cooking or household cleaning or washing windows or shoveling snow or pruning fruit trees or, whatever else you needed help with. Another thing I like about the Nesterly program is they do not require the first month rent, the last month rent, and the damage deposit that so many property managers do require before they will rent an apartment. If the host wants any of those, they can put it in the contract, but they have to collect that money themselves. And I think this is really important because Mary Bedke, the CEO of our Boys and Girls Club here in Port Angeles, tells me that she can pay her employees enough to pay the apartment rent, but they can't save up the first month, last month, and security deposit, which all adds up to about $5,000, and they just can't do it. So they can't get into an apartment, even though they could afford the apartment after that. Renter's insurance is not required. It is highly recommended. Homeowners are advised to be sure they have home sharing insurance, and in this state, it's called a room rental rider. Now I'm going to show you 2 slides that I just learned about from the CEO of Nesterly. She shared these from Homeshare Vermont's annual report from 2025. Homeshare Vermont has been in existence for 43 years, and the Nesterly program is modeled on theirs. And neither Nesterly nor Homeshare Vermont, from what she told me, has had an eviction in all that time. Nesterly has been in operation since 2017, and they operate in a number of different jurisdictions. So this seems to be a really good model to follow. All this on the right side of the slide is very hard to read, so I'm just going to summarize that, and I picked out a few facts to put in larger type on the left side, so that's what I'm going to emphasize. In 2025, this program had between 100 and 125 homeshare hosts at any given time, and 300 people benefited. So sometimes there was a couple acting as a home sharing host with one single renter, or sometimes there was a single host renting to perhaps a single parent with one child or two children, or some kind of combination of people there that got up to that 300 number. The hosts were able to save over $560,000 because their guests provided 38,000 hours of assistance. And that saving for the hosts is basically what this program cost Vermont to run for the state. So right there, Vermont felt like they were getting a good return on investment. But in addition to that, the hosts received over $395,000 in rental income. So think what they could buy with that. Maybe they no longer had to go to the food bank. Maybe they could afford health insurance. Maybe they could maintain their house and their car better. The average rent was only $379. And I wish we could find some home sharing hosts who would be willing to go that low on their rent. That would help so many people. The guests saved over $880,000 in rent expense when compared to the market rates of the towns around them. So that again, think what they could do with that money. They could buy clothes, they could buy a car, they could maintain their car, they could go back to school and get an advanced degree and earn more money, and then eventually get out of this home sharing option, which I'm sure is transient for most people. They want to get their own place. We all want to have our own place. So these are some of the numbers that show you that home sharing can provide a lot of benefits to a community. Now I'm going to show you what the home sharing hosts felt it did for them personally. This is a survey that HomeShare Vermont does every year of their hosts to see what they feel the program did for them. 80% felt happier, 79% felt safer in their home. That same percentage felt less lonely. 71% actually enjoyed their home more, maybe because they were teaching their guests about things they'd collected, or showing them how to garden, or teaching them how to fish, or teaching them how to do woodworking, or whatever their own hobbies were. 58% said household chores were completed more regularly. 55% worried less about money. 44 to 46 slept better and called their family less often for help. So it was just a wonderful social support system as well as a financial support system. And that's why I really think we should adopt this as an option for affordable housing here. So if you want to do that, the name of our program is Olympic Homeshare, and you can find it easily on the Port Angeles Chamber of Commerce site, which is portangeles.org. You'll see in the upper right-hand corner there, Olympic Homeshare, and here's a larger picture of that, and that's what you would click on. And then you get to this page, which describes the program, and you scroll down and you see some more information about it, but you also see this green button at the end that says Learn More About Nesterly. If you click on that, you go straight to the Nesterly website, and we'll do that next. But beyond this, on this same page, when you scroll down, are frequently asked questions and their answers. So I encourage you to look at this, get your cell phones out, take pictures of these screens as we go through, because these are all screenshots to show you how to use the site. So now we're going to pretend like we just clicked on the Learn More About Nesterly button, and here's where we go, to nesterly.com. And again, in the upper right hand, you'll see two little buttons there in the green bar that say log in and sign up. And to the left, you'll see their phone number to call and get a human being to help answer your questions. And you can do that during business hours, Monday through Friday. There's a larger version of the sign up button. If you wanted to start creating an account, that's what you would do first. And when you do that, click on Get Started or Sign Up, you get to this screen, which shows you the two options of you're looking for a room to rent or you're renting a room. So you would click on whichever one applied for you, and we'll pretend like we're going to be a home sharing host. So we've clicked on I'm renting a room. Then you click on choose city, or on another page it says select your city. And this is where you get the drop-down menu that shows you all the places where they operate now. And we are listed as Olympic Peninsula on their site. So here you are, you're renting a room, you've chosen your city, and then it will ask you, just probably for their demographic information, what is your main interest in this program? Is it extra income? Is it social connection, household help? And then you create your account with your name, your date of birth. Then the contact information is kept secret and anonymous, so that no one who browses your site can see your phone number or your email until you allow that. So again, to home share, you have to live on the property. That doesn't mean you have to live in the actual space you are renting if you have an ADU on your property. Most people rent a bedroom out of their house, and if there's an adjoining bathroom, they'll generally rent that too. But if there isn't an adjoining bathroom, you're going to be sharing that bathroom, as well as your living room and kitchen and your yard and your parking spaces and all that kind of stuff. And of course, if you're renting an ADU, you're still going to be sharing the parking spaces, but basically nothing else. But you can also live in the ADU yourself and then rent the house. And you can rent to more than one renter. You can rent to as many people as you have bedrooms to house each one. So there are a lot of flexible options with this program. But again, now you're going to be creating a listing. So they ask you to introduce yourself, and their social workers, again, if you're not sure how to do that, will be happy to give you advice. There are character limits between 100 and 500 for that introduction. And then you add a profile photo, which I have been told can be done from within their app, unless you have one already, in which case you select it and upload it yourself. Agreeing to the community compact just means that you're acknowledging that they cannot practice discrimination in who they refer to you to consider as a guest. And then they ask you some other questions to build your profile. And the listing name needs to be a unique name that will be visible to guests, but won't actually identify where your house is. So make it kind of a broad generalization like this one, the 3-bedroom house in Beacon Hill for someone living in Boston. And then you enter the amount of rent and when it's available and whether you're going to charge for utilities and how long the lease would be. It has to be at least 1 month. It is renewable. You can go for as long as 12 months and you can renew at the end of that time if you want to, or anything in between. Nesterly has told me that their average is 9 months because, again, the highest number of participants in their program are students who are renting from people who are older than they are, who already own a house. But it doesn't have to be that way. This could work for 2 single-parent families sharing a house. It could work for lots of different options. It could work for 2 widowed people, 2 divorced people of any age. You have to be 18 years old to use this platform. Then they ask you to upload photos of your listing, 1 from the outside and at least 2 inside, whatever you think shows it to the most advantage. The team will review your listing and make sure that you're happy with it before they make it visible on the Nesterly website. And if you do not have a smartphone, or if you do not have an email address, you can have a friend take pictures on their smartphone, and then they can email the pictures to Nesterly at hello@nesterly.com, including information about which account these pictures are to go with. And then Nesterly will actually add them to your listing. And then you can follow up with the call to Nesterly to make sure they got them and that they labeled them correctly for your listing. And then again, if you don't have an email address, Nesterly will call you when they find a potential housemate guest for you. Their typical way of notifying people is to use email. And I think you have 3 or 4 days to review that and get back to them as to whether you want to talk to that person or decline them as a guest. And then if you decline, they will send you someone else when is available. They will help you set up the initial phone call. You could, again, use a friend's smartphone to do a video chat, or you could go to a place where a public computer with a camera is available, like the library, to set up a video chat if you didn't have a smartphone yourself. Now we're going to get into some of the legal stuff that has to do with being a landlord, because if you're going to be a home sharing host, you are now considered a landlord. The Landlord Tenant Act, the specifics that I want to draw to your attention are these two. The first one requires the landlord to supply reasonably adequate locks and furnish keys. So of course that's for entry into the house and locking it up when you leave. But there is also another section that talks about when the landlord can enter the rented space, because once you rent that bedroom, it's no longer your space, it's the tenant's space. You can do it if there's an emergency, like you think there's a fire going on or a flood or whatever, or by written notice of date and time delivered at least 1 day prior. The tenant cannot refuse the landlord entry under those conditions, but can request a different date and time. So again, as already mentioned, homeowners do become landlords when they home share. So there is an RCW that addresses co-living residential units, and home sharing is a form of co-living residential unit. Some developers are actually building dorm-style apartment complexes now, which are also included in co-living residential units, but home sharing is one subtype. And so the new requirement that went into effect at the end of December of 2025 is that the doorknobs on those rented rooms need to be lockable. So I'm sure it's a fairly simple process to change the doorknob, but if you don't want to mess with it, if you live in Port Angeles, our Chamber of Commerce recommended Clark Home Care. If you live in Sequim, they recommended Jay's Home Solutions. I'm sure there are other handyman companies elsewhere that would help you with this, but those are two possible sources of help for that particular doorknob change. This is the new law that I am most excited about, because if you live in a homeowners association, you already know that there is a lot of boilerplate language in those CCRs, which stands for Covenant, Condition, and Restrictions, that says that only members of a single family related by blood or marriage can live on the lot. So a new RCW went into effect for homeowners associations when House Bill 1054 was signed on June 6, 2024. And this is the RCW number, and it directly says that a homeowners association may adopt or enforce a restriction, covenant, condition that regulates or limits the number of unrelated persons that may occupy a lot. So if you live in a homeowners association anywhere in the state of Washington with CCRs that say single family occupants only per property, that is no longer allowed. They can no longer enforce that rule. And I think homeowners associations could be a big help in the solution to affordable housing if they would encourage the people who live in their borders to home share. Think of all those big houses and how many empty bedrooms are in those houses. Nesterly does keep income records for the hosts, and that's important also because rental income is federally taxable as ordinary income. This IRS publication, 527, residential rental property, pages 23 and 24, is the page that you need to consult that applies to people renting a bedroom within their own house. Some home improvements can allow tax deductions, and Schedule E Form 1040 is what you would use to download that, and that's where you go to find answers to questions about that, or to download a PDF of the form. If your renovations are more complicated than the examples they give you, you probably would need to talk to an accountant to get help. Also, if you already receive assistance with utility, rent, property tax, medical insurance, like if you're on Medicaid, that means if you have Apple Health in this state, or if you're enrolled in a Medicare savings program through the state of Washington's Healthcare Authority, you really need to talk to your case manager about how much rent you can charge and still keep your benefits, especially if you're talking about those health insurance programs, you probably do because it's really expensive to replace health insurance yourself. So you should find out the current year's income limits to continue to receive those benefits and decide if you want to continue receiving them or if the benefits of having a housemate and rental income that would make you ineligible for the assistance is more important to you. And then also, of course, know the upper limit of income for your tax bracket so you don't get any tax surprises when you file next year. But I think with Nesterly's help, the benefits of this program will outweigh the concerns and the small amount of risk associated with it. Again, remember, the only people who will participate in this program are people who have passed their extensive vetting process. And remember again, Nesterly, since 2017, has been in operation in multiple jurisdictions, and they have never had an eviction case. So I think we can trust their vetting process and their dispute resolution process. The hosts will receive companionship, which is really important to prevent isolation and all the problems that can go along with that. Extra income for expenses, help with tasks they don't want to do anymore, and get new ideas. The guests will receive companionship. They'll be able to save money and think how valuable that is. You could go back to school. You could get an advanced degree. You can keep your car running. You could stop having to go to the food bank, and you'll have a decent place to live, probably bigger than whatever very small cramped studio apartment you're in right now, paying way too much for. For Clallam County, if we can free up some apartments, as supply increases, rents will decrease. That's just supply and demand. It will happen. And we could create potential new families for people who are living here, far away from grandparents, especially if they rented a bedroom to one of these senior folks that I am so worried about in exchange for some childcare and reduce the rent, since this person would be acting as a live-in babysitter or a live-in nanny even. Think how beneficial that could be. A family with 3 preschool-age children can't possibly pay for daycare. It's over $1,300 a month for one child. So this would allow the parent to go back to work, and it would give the retired educator a safe place to live and a purpose of helping those children get ready for school when it's their turn to go to school. And that would be very, very beneficial for that entire family. Or 2 single parent families could share a house, and if the adults worked offsetting shifts, they could help with each other's childcare needs. All of this would help us meet our recompete goal of getting 1,000 people who are currently not working back into the workforce in the next 5 years. And here on the peninsula, I think we've all learned this lesson in the past. We have to take care of each other. Nobody else is going to help us. We have to figure out how to do it. And this is one way that we can make more affordable housing available. And again, as a retired physician, let me introduce one more new idea to you. I used to start these talks by saying that housing is healthcare, and that is still very true, both physical and mental health care. But the more I think about it, I think it's even more important than just health care. If you think back to that triangle of needs for survival, the first thing is water, the second is food, and the third is shelter. Yes, for survival, not just for health. I think about how long I could make it if I didn't have a roof over my head at night and I didn't know where I could use the toilet next. I might make it 72 hours without becoming completely paranoid if I could park right outside a police station. I don't think I could make it longer than that. So it's not even just physical survival, it's mental and emotional survival as someone who can still act like a thinking, empathic human being. If we don't take care of each other, we should not be surprised as some people become a little feral, for lack of a better word. So let's choose to take care of each other. Let's choose to support the Olympic Homeshare program, which is now available throughout Clallam County and is paid for the entire year of 2026. My last slide is going to show you what you can do if you can't home share right now and you don't need a cheaper rental program yourself. I encourage you to talk to all of your acquaintances about this. Almost all of our workforce here in Clallam County could benefit from a cheaper way to live. Let them know this program exists, so when their leases are running out, they can take a look at it and see if it is appropriate for them. In the meantime, you can help by sending donations to help support this program. Our partner agency is the Chamber of Commerce of Port Angeles. Our initial charge for this program was a $5,000 onboarding fee and then $2,895 a month. That is an ongoing expense. And I think we really need to continue this program for 2 or 3 years to get it in everyone's consciousness. So if you would like to reduce your federal taxes this year or next year or both, please send a check or donor advised funds, which are funds that are created when you put appreciated stock into a donor advised fund at your brokerage house, to the United Way of Clallam County. And the reason to do that again is because the United Way of Clallam County is a 501c3 organization. So that donation will give you federal tax benefits. And then you would indicate Olympic Homeshare Fund as the program to support, and that is where you would mail your check, or you would tell your brokerage to mail the check if you're donating donor advised funds. And thank you for your support.